What's the biggest threat to North America and Europe? The US says it's China, but the world's biggest military alliance gives a different answer. As Beijing rapidly expands its military, could the power balance in Asia shift towards China? That's as questions rise over whether Washington's aid to Ukraine will impact its commitment to Taiwan. We spoke with expert Greg Copley for his answers. A recent coal purchase is making headlines over an unusual payment method. The transaction is between an India-based company and a Russian coal supplier and is valued in the millions. Costco is recalling hundreds of thousands of solar umbrellas, all of them made in China. Reports say a malfunction can cause them to catch fire. And protests in central China's Henan province. It's over $6 billion in customer money stuck inside local banks. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Don Ma, sitting in for Tiffany today. Russia or China? Which country is the bigger threat to the free world? The US says China, while NATO, the world's largest military alliance, points to Russia, but Beijing is still on NATO's radar. For the first time, the organization is labeling China as a fast-growing competitor rather than a trading partner, even though it still engages with the economic powerhouse. Let's dive in.
With the months-long war happening on Ukrainian soil, NATO has formally labeled Russia as the most significant and direct threat to the allies' security. That's according to a summit statement on Wednesday.
It makes clear that Russia poses the most significant and direct threat to our security.
NATO, short for the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, is an intergovernmental military alliance between 30 member states from North America and Europe, with the U.S. at its head. They recently agreed on NATO's first new strategic concept in a decade. That's its master planning document. Russia, previously classed as a strategic partner of NATO, is now identified as NATO's main threat. The planning document also cited China as a challenge for the first time. That sets the stage for the 30 allies to shift Beijing's classification from a benign trading partner to a fast-growing competitor in everything from the Arctic to cyberspace. But unlike Russia, NATO leaders said Beijing is not an adversary.
China is substantially building up its military forces, including nuclear weapons, bullying its neighbors and threatening Taiwan. Investing heavily in critical infrastructure, including in allied countries. Monitoring and controlling its own citizens through advanced technology. And spreading Russian lies and disinformation. China is not our adversary, but we must be clear-eyed about the serious challenges it represents.
On Tuesday, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said the alliance needs to engage with China.
We don't regard China as an adversary, and China, of course, is soon the biggest economy in the world. We need to engage with China, for instance, on issues like climate change. It matters for the whole energy market.
But NATO did voice concerns about Beijing's close ties to Moscow.
But we are disappointed by the fact that China has not been able to condemn the Russian invasion of Ukraine, that China is spreading many of the false narratives about NATO, the West, and also that China and Russia are more close now than have ever been before. At least they stated very clearly, both China and Russia, that they were against any NATO enlargement, and that is the first time China so explicitly has in a way had a strong opinion directed against NATO and NATO enlargement.
NATO diplomats told Reuters that the United States and the United Kingdom want to use tough language, but France and Germany are more cautious. As the world's second largest economy, Beijing has attracted concern because of its apparent support of Moscow amid the Russia-Ukraine war. In addition, China's military ambition continues to grow in the South China Sea and the Taiwan Strait, threatening navigation freedom for ships and Taiwan's territorial integrity. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan said competition between the United States and China does not mean confrontation or conflict.
A trilateral meeting between the U.S., Japan, and South Korea leaders took place on Wednesday. It was the first time they met in nearly 5 years, and it happened on the sidelines of this week's NATO summit. U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan released the news to reporters on Air Force One on their way to Madrid Tuesday. He said the trilateral summit would focus on the continued threat from North Korea. According to Seoul, the three-party presidential meeting raised security cooperation topics, mainly over Pyongyang's nuclear programs and intensive missile testing. And big news for international trade, India's biggest cement producer, Ultratech Cement, is importing a cargo shipment of Russian coal and paying it with Chinese yuan. That's according to an Indian customs document reviewed by Reuters. Traders say this rare payment method could become more common. The US dollar is the world's primary reserve currency and the currency most often used for global trade. The customs document reveals Ultratech is bringing in over 170,000 tons of coal from Russian producer Suik. It cites an invoice dated June 5th with cargo valued at roughly $26 million. Anonymous trade sources familiar with the matter said that other companies have also placed orders for Russian coal using Chinese yuan. Comments say the move could help insulate Moscow from Western sanctions and chip away at the dominance of the US dollar. Ultratech and Suik did not respond for a comment. At the same time, Russia's ruble hit its strongest level in 7 years despite massive sanctions. Analysts attribute to the jump to strikingly high energy prices and other controls. Russia has the most gas reserves in the world, and its oil reserves rank 8th globally. Costco is pulling hundreds of thousands of Chinese-made solar umbrellas from its shelves. Authorities say a malfunction can cause the items to catch fire. The U.S. Customer Product Safety Commission, or CPSC, says it received 6 reports of product malfunctions. A person even went to the hospital for smoke inhalation due to one of the incidents. These patio umbrellas were made in China. They were imported into the U.S. through California-based firm Sunvilla. The CPSC says the lithium-ion batteries in the umbrella's solar panels can overheat and cause a fire and pose a burn hazard. The agency is asking consumers to stop using the products and to remove the solar panel puck. Customers should also avoid charging them with the AC adapter. Since 2020, more than 400,000 of these umbrellas have been sold at Costco in the U.S. and Canada. Sunvilla and Costco are contacting all known buyers to offer full refunds. Thousands of Chinese depositors are fighting to recover their savings. Since April, at least 4 banks in the central province of Henan have suspended cash withdrawals. The incident involves a whopping $6 billion. Let's take a closer look.
In recent days, some 100 people took to the streets to protest in China's Henan province. They gathered in front of the province's Bureau of Banking and Insurance Regulatory Commission, despite soaring temperatures of 104 degrees. The problem? Banks in the area aren't allowing customers to withdraw their own money. Now, the demonstrators are demanding their money back and a meeting with the head of the Banking and Insurance Regulatory Commission. One protest banner addressed the bank saying, "Give me my life savings back." But protesters' efforts didn't have the intended effect. On Monday, some of them were forced into police buses and taken into custody. Some were also reportedly beaten by police, including female protesters. Inside China, public protests are generally not allowed. Demonstrators often face violence, arrest, imprisonment, or even worse. But the bank customers say they're not giving up. For many of them, the money they deposited into their accounts is virtually all they have.
Some families have sick children and need the money to get surgery. Because they can't recover their money, some children already passed away. A lot of tragedies like this will happen. If we can't get our money back, we don't know how we'll survive.
Chinese media reported that many of those affected had deposited money into banks through an online trading system. But that system is controlled by a company under fraud investigation. Amid all the uproar, some suspect Chinese authorities may have taken unconventional measures to stem protests. They say authorities changed people's COVID-19 health codes from green to red. The codes are part of China's contact tracing system. A green code means the user has a clean bill of health, while a red code means the user either tested positive for the infection or came in close contact with someone who did. Anyone with a red code is mandated to stay at home.
And now to the southern border of China. The border disputes not only involve India, but also a couple of other smaller countries. Residents of Kathmandu, the capital of Nepal, took to the streets in protest this week. This comes after China illegally took over a so-called no man's land along their shared borders. The protest was led by a group called the National Unity Campaign. Members demonstrated with signs outside the parliament building. They were demanding that Beijing stop encroaching on their border areas. According to protesters, China fenced and installed electric wires in the uninhabited area next to the northern Gorkha district. This is a violation of the mutual agreement between the two countries. Authorities have yet to comment on the fencing. Relations between Nepal and China have been heating up in recent years. China has become a major aid donor and a trading partner to its tiny neighbor, offering major investments in hospitals and other infrastructure. In the past, the Nepalese government has pledged not to allow any protests against China after receiving economic aid from Beijing. Is China's military power on track to surpass America's in Asia? Beijing's rapid military expansion is putting its neighbors on edge. For the first time ever, countries from the Indo-Pacific are joining a NATO meeting. But with the war raging in Ukraine, does Washington have enough energy to deal with China and Russia at the same time? NTD's Julia Song spoke with Greg Copley, president of the International Strategic Studies Association, for more.
The largest military buildup in history. That's what the head of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command is saying about China's military expansion. The Chinese Communist Party has been busy expanding its military presence, even though it already has the biggest navy in the world and the biggest air force in Asia. On top of boosting its nuclear arsenal, the regime continues to grow its control of the South China Sea by militarizing the islands. In the east, it has sent record numbers of fighter jets near Taiwan. And on a high-level meeting with defense chiefs from many countries, Beijing declared its resolve to take the island under control by force.
If anyone dares to secede Taiwan from China, we will not hesitate to fight. We will fight at all costs, and we will fight to the very end. This is the only choice for China.
In the south, Beijing is helping Cambodia to upgrade a military base, which could give Beijing a foothold in the Gulf of Thailand. Further south, China signed a deal with the Solomon Islands, and the agreement has put big powers in the west on edge. That's because they fear it could allow Beijing to have a military base near Australia. Chinese leader Xi Jinping wants his military to be as powerful as the US's by 2027. And now, some worry that if Washington doesn't take action in time, China could take its seat as the dominant power in the Indo-Pacific region. Here's Greg Copley's take on the issue. He's the president of the International Strategic Studies Association.
It's true that the US has not invested as much as it should have in the Indo-Pacific or in new defense technologies generally over the past few decades. We saw a slight resurgence in defense spending under the Trump administration. Now we see it flattening out, and we see the really dangerous and negative impacts of inflation on the purchasing power.
The White House has requested over $800 billion for the 2023 defense budget, the largest ever. But with inflation, it's only a 1.5% increase from 2022. The Pentagon has said it needs a bare minimum of a 3 to 5% increase to maintain U.S. military's capability. And many in Congress have asked for a 5 to 7% increase, considering Russia's invasion and China's military modernization. Even though Washington's defense budget is falling behind, Copley notes there's a catch with China's military power.
And that's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program here after being demonetized for more than a year. Here's what to look out for in our second half. A closer look at what some call the Achilles heel of Beijing's military power. At the same time, Washington is walking a fine line as some question whether its aid to Ukraine will affect its commitment to Taiwan. We hear from Greg Copley, president of the International Strategic Studies Association, for the details on the situation. The full episode is available on our partner platform Epoch TV. To sign up, click the link down below. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Don Ma. See you tomorrow.
Presenting the heritage of traditional Chinese martial arts, promoting martial ethics, and reviving the true tradition. The 2022 NTD International Traditional Chinese Martial Arts Competition preliminaries will be held in New York and Taiwan. On August 28th, the finals will be broadcast live online worldwide. Registration hotline 188-477-9228. For more information, please visit martialarts.ntdtv.com.